start sharing my screen.
Thanks, Aureliana.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. As Elisabetta has already said, in the last version of, sorry. Okay, in the last version that we have released of the transformation framework, we have implemented the interface with the traceability. The new release of the transformation framework is available on GitHub here at this address, and in the last release we have implemented the trace sender that is in charge to generate the trace for each transformation framework output product and to send the trace to a traceability service. Now, this is the current architecture of the transformation framework. Here, a user submits a request through the API. The request is submitted to the scheduler that then submits the request to the workers. Here, the processing is performed, and when it's terminated, if it's completed successfully, then the trace is generated for this product and sent it to the traceability. If the push of the trace fails, then the trace is stored in an external directory that is configurable in order to allow to send the trace manually later. Here in blue, you can see the elements that have been updated or modified. And here you can see also this one is in blue because we have also modified a little bit the, we have some minor changes in the, also in the interface of the plugin that is, okay, that, and we will see it in the last, in the last example, in the last demonstration. Now, this is the outline of this demonstration. First of all, we start with some pre-requirements for running this notebook. Then we will see how to configure the trace sender in the transformation framework. We will do a test for trace generation and push. Then we will see how to manage trace push failure, how to disable the trace sender, and last, we will see how the interface between plugin and transformation framework has changed. Now, for this test, I will use a test plugin that is available here, at this address, for sake of simplicity and speed, because this plugin implements 3 workflows that are dummy workflow. That is, they copy the input data in the output directory. The first 2 workflows support the traceability, while the last one doesn't support the traceability. And here how to download and install the workflows, the plugin. And this is one utility function to update the configuration file, and I will use it later. So let's see how to configure the trace sender. Clearly, since the traceability is an external service, we have to, for configuring the trace sender inside the transformation framework, we need to have a username and traceability service user account, that is username and password. Then after that, we have to require the data producer role for the desired service context. And note that for that a data producer can push on more than one service context, but the transformation framework supports pushing only on one service context. With the data producer role, you will be able to push and trace, to push and search the traces, and you will provide it with a key fingerprint, passphrase, and a secret key that are files that are information that are needed for to are needed for configuration for configuring the trace as a sorry, the transformation framework trace sender. Okay, this is the trace sender needs two files. The first one is the secret.txt, and it must be placed inside the directory as ATF config, where all the configuration files are saved. The secret.txt is the secret key file that will be provided with the data produce role. Then you have to fill up the traceability config YAML that contains, and this is an example of traceability config YAML, and contains the service URL, the URL where you have to request the token, the URL where you will push the trace, username and password of your account, key fingerprint, passphrase, and then the service context and the service provider name. Okay, let's do a test. So the trace is generated and sent when a transformation order is successfully completed. So let's do a simulation. Let's submit a transformation order. Okay, we are using this test workflow, the first one. Our request has been accepted. Okay, and here we have to wait. Okay, it's completed very fast. So I expect that since the transformation is completed successfully, the transformation framework log the trace push event according to this template. Where, okay, the order ID, date time, and then trace file name and trace ID. The trace ID is needed if you want to retrieve the trace from the traceability service to check that it's correctly published, for example. You can do it using the traceability service site or using the traceability service API. We are going to use the traceability service API. So we need the trace ID, and we do a request filtering by ID here. And here we put the trace ID. So let's check. Okay. Here we can see the trace has been pushed, and here there is the ID of the trace. So I copy and I paste the ID here. Okay, and I do the request to the service, to the traceability service, and this is the trace published. Here, those are the files contained in our output product. And if we go down, we can see that there are the information, for example, the processor version, and the processor name, product type, and other information in the trace. Now, what happens if the trace push fails? In case the trace is correctly generated, but the trace push fails, then the trace is stored in a configurable directory to allow pushing the trace manually. You can define, you can choose the directory where to save the trace, modifying the asatf.m file. This is, sorry, this is here. You can see this is the package. This is the sub-package asatf, and here, and this is the file where you can when you can modify the trace directory. So the default is trace. Allora, let's do a test. Here I update the configuration file with a wrong URL. So the trace will be generated, but the push will fail. Will push trace. I'm modifying here the URL push trace. Okay, and then we submit again an order. Okay, let's see if it's going to finish. No, we have to. I hope we will wait a few seconds. Yes, okay, finished. So, okay. Here is logging that the trace has been not pushed because you can't find the URL. Okay, and here we can see that the trace is stored inside the directory that we have chosen. Now I update with the correct push trace URL. Now, how to disable the trace sender? We have two options for disabling the trace sender. We can use enable traceability and setting to false. And in this case, the trace sender is completely disabled. It will not produce any trace for the trace for, okay, completely disabled. Or we can choose to disable one workflow, two workflows using untraced workflow. In this case, you will be able to disable the trace sender only for some specific workflows. Okay. Just a note that some workflow may not support the traceability at all. So even if the traceability is enabled, and they are not contained in the list of the untraced workflow, the trace may not generate it. But anyway, the transformation framework will log this information. We will see it later. Now let's check the current trace sender configuration. Okay. Here we can see that the traceability is enabled, but for workflow 2, the traceability is disabled only for the second workflow. So let's submit an order using the second workflow, and I expect that the transformation framework will log the information that oh, sorry, I've done an error. Sorry. Okay, I don't want to show you this now. Sorry. I will modify the configuration file manually now. Okay. Now, because I want to show you first that setting this to false. No. Sorry. Setting this to false, the traceability is disabled. Sorry. Okay, let's go back. And now let's check again our configuration file here. Okay, there are no untraced workflow, but the traceability is disabled. So we submit an order, and I expect that the transformation framework logs correctly that the traceability is disabled. Now, let's submit the transformation order, and we can see here that our REST API is logging that the traceability is disabled. So it is not going to generate and push the trace. As you can see here, there is no information that the trace has been pushed correctly. Okay. Now I enable again the traceability, and I want to show you what is going to happen if when I disable the traceability only for one workflow. Here I'm only for workflow 2. So untrace workflow will be equal to a list containing only one element, that is the second workflow here. Okay. I expect that the transformation framework is going to log that the second workflow is traceability is disabled. So I submit the order now. The order has been accepted. Let's check the logs. And here we can find the correct log. Workflow 2 has been traceability is disabled. Now, finally, let's see what is going to happen, what is going to change between plugin in the plugin interface. I do here a very small recap on how to implement a new plugin, a new workflow. First of all, a workflow must be contained in a plugin that is a Python package that will be installed on the transformation framework workers. A workflow must be declared as entry point the plugin setup point .cfg here. This is the workflow name, and this is the function, a pointer to the workflow description, where the workflow description is a dictionary that contains, first of all, the function that is going to that perform the processing, and all the other information needed by the transformation framework to validate the input from the users, and that for example the input and other information, for example the workflow version and the workflow options that are really important. Okay. Now, with the last version, we have added three additional key that are needed. They are optional, and they are used by the trace sender. The processor name, this one, the processor version, and they will be present in the trace, and support traceability. That is a boolean, and if false, the workflow, the transformation framework will not produce a trace for this workflow. So if support traceability is false, then transformation framework will not produce the trace for this workflow, and is not possible to reactivate the transformation in the transformation framework configuration the traceability for this workflow. So, okay, let's do an example. The last workflow, the last workflow doesn't support the traceability. This is the workflow description, and here you can see that support traceability is false. So I expect that the transformation framework will log this information when I run when I submit a request using this workflow. Okay, let's check. Yeah, the request has been accepted. Have a look to the logs, and here, okay, you can see that the transformation framework is logging this information. So with this, I think I have finished.
Okay, many thanks, Aureliana. I don't know if there are some questions. No? Okay. I think that some of you have already started to use the transformation framework. So if you when you will play with this new release, if you have any doubt or question, you can contact me. Thank you. I think that if there are no questions, it's all on our side. Many thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the
Thank
presentation.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.